Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. Today it is August 29th, and we are here with the Daily Show. Today we have myself and Jack. Jack, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. School's just starting up again, so getting back into the flow of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a bit tricky getting the routine set for those first couple weeks, but just looking to get back into a rhythm.
Yep, that makes sense. And we don't really have that much to talk about today. There's a handful of things going on, but we're not going to go terribly long because we really don't have that much really important news. In all honesty, kind of some things that were expected. Not really anything, not that many important trades or anything like that. So we're going to keep it light today.
Pretty slow
Um,
news day.
yeah, pretty slow news day. But the first thing we're going to talk about, which is pretty important in the long scheme of the NFL offseason and the future as well, Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, that whole situation. The Colts were unable to find a trade partner for Jonathan Taylor. So I guess we'll start just, were you surprised that the Colts were not able to find a trade partner for Jonathan Taylor?
Um, Honestly, I can't really say I'm too surprised, especially once I kind of started to hear what they were kind of asking for in return, which was like a first round pick or, some players and mid round picks. And it's just kind of we've seen the writing on the wall with running backs, these last couple years, and it's just teams don't really value running backs too much anymore. And now you got a guy like Jonathan Taylor. He's what, I want to say like 26, 24. So he's 24 at this point. He's dealt with some nagging injuries in years past, so I'm sure that kind of played a part in teams not wanting to give up too much for him. But yeah, it just kind of seemed like the Colts were asking for too much, and I didn't really think that they were going to get what they were asking for, which was a first round pick or multiple picks in a player.
Hmm. Yeah. And I missed Trey's comment here at the start, but he said, talk about the future of the Daily Show. So let's put the Jonathan Taylor stuff on ice for a minute, and then we'll get back to that obviously. But let's talk for a minute about the Daily Show here. Um, for those that are, I guess this hasn't been made public yet, but here at Vendetta, we did a nice little Google form. Basically, give your thoughts on the company that was in the Slack over the weekend. And then Trey and I recorded a daily, or That's Some Cheese earlier today and talked about the responses to the Google form. And one of the things that we talked about a lot in the show was the Daily Show, and we talked about quite a bit of things as far as if we should continue recording the Daily Show, if we should change the Daily Show, and basically right now about how the Daily Show honestly doesn't get a ton of traction, and if we can possibly spend the time put on the Daily Show somewhere else. So Trey and I talked about that today, and that's some cheese. I'm not 100% sure when that comes out, but people should tune into that because we talk about a lot more than just the Daily Show in that episode as well. But I guess let's talk about the state of the Daily Show and the future of it. I guess, Jack, what are your thoughts right now on where the Daily Show stands here at Vendetta in the both the long term and then kind of the short term of the list of podcasts that we have right now?
Yeah, well, I think what I will say, and like the one thing that I have liked that I do enjoy with the Daily Show is kind of what I understood its intended purpose to be was to kind of get other people's faces, kind of out there and associated with Vendetta. Some people who haven't been with the site as long or people who are, just coming up. It was kind of a way for them to kind of, get in front of the camera, kind of get their opinions and voices heard. Because, anybody who is, a longtime reader of the site, like knows Trey, Chickster and all of them. It's like they kind of know who they are, kind of what they believe if they've been reading long enough. But with the Daily Show, it kind of gives people who maybe aren't as well known yet in Vendetta a chance to kind of get their voice heard. But like to your credit, or not to your credit, but like you've said, the Daily Show doesn't necessarily gain the most traction. One of the most it's not one of the higher viewing things that Vendetta does. And so, I think there probably always is potential room for improvement. Where exactly that comes, I mean, I don't know 100%. I think maybe one thing is just kind of keeping the duration of the video shorter, because there'll be sometimes, and I mean, I've been a part of episodes of the Daily Show that run on for too long, and you just don't even realize it. And it's like you don't really need an episode going over an hour and a half or whatnot. There's just really not too many people that are going to want to sit through that. So I think that's one thing. Or maybe just, if you do get rid of the Daily Show, maybe just not even get rid of it, but you just like break it up into different like sections. Like we already kind of have the lead word for the NFL, and then Trey and Jared do their show for the NBA, but maybe just break it up into like a baseball podcast as well, and have one for college football, so that you're just specifically covering news from that department. That way you can kind of have, I think, more concise and clearer episodes where you're not kind of jumping all over the place, going from topic to topic. You can kind of have that niche audience of people that are there because they want to learn more about NFL or NBA or baseball.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of the points you said, and that was one of the things that I proposed in my Google form, was that we break up into more separate podcasts, and have specific podcasts for specific sports. Kind of like how we have Jim Arrange, and they do a great job with
Yeah.
college basketball coverage, and we can lean into that with other sports as well. And one of the things Trey brought up is that can be a little hard with some editors and some back end stuff. But we do have the like front end or camera talent for it. But it comes down to making sure we have the back end stuff for that as well. So kind of workshopping some, we obviously haven't, announced anything, and we obviously have not come to any conclusions. But there could be some changes in the future, and even if they're minor changes, like using social media to promote the show more, or putting out a tweet that we're going live, which we really don't do, or using shorts to promote the show and help the podcast channel as a whole grow. We don't really do a lot of that. So even, I think there's a couple ways we could approach this for Vendetta, whether that be to, like you said, split up into more specific shows and try and grow niche audiences rather than starting at a general point, or adding elements to the Daily Show to make it better, which both are viable options, but it just comes down to which way are we going to approach it, and what way does everyone at the site think is best when it comes to improving the Daily Show. So it's going to be an interesting time here for the Daily Show. Right now, we're chugging along in terms of the daily content, but there could be some changes in the future, whether it be small things in like scheduling, or small things in organizing, or topic ideas, or maybe even some larger changes, whether it be scrapping it and starting new podcasts. But it looks like there could be some changes. And like you said, Jack, it's not really hasn't really gained a lot of traction in the, I don't know the span of time we've been doing this off the top of my head, but it has been started early this year, a couple months into the year, and now we're in August. So it has been, several months, and we'd like to gain some traction, but we also need to increase the quality at the same time. So right now we're experimenting with some ways to do that. And if anyone listening is a fan of the Daily Show and has ideas, your opinions are valid as well. So you can chime in with those as well if anyone wants to. But yeah, we're experimenting with some ways to at least tweak the Daily Show to increase the quality as we move forward.
Yeah, and the point you mentioned that I think would be really good would be like using or utilizing the YouTube shorts because at least on the Vendetta YouTube site, like those shorts are usually those shorts usually do pretty good. And a lot of those shorts will be some of our more higher viewing stuff aside from like the exception of like some of the couple videos that are on there. But shorts usually bring in a decent chunk of audience for us, specifically on YouTube. So I definitely think that would be a pretty good way to potentially, you know, gain traction for the Daily Show.
Yep, I'm with you on that, and then that just comes down to organizing who's going to do it and making sure we have the editors in place and stuff like that, which is entirely possible if that's the direction we go, and maybe that brings eyes to the show in the future, which would really benefit all of us. You know, we all take the time. You know, some of us come on the show several times a week, but that does have a little bit more payoff when you put the time towards the daily show, and then you turn around and it has it's at least growing, and that would be a better as well. And another thing Trey and I briefly talked about was in the future, in person, the Daily Show would probably be much easier and much better in person than it is right now when we're doing it virtually. But doing virtual does have its peaks because, for example, Jack, me and you don't sit down, you know, to talk to each other that often since we're writing blogs remotely. So it is nice to get an opportunity to sit down with everybody and talk to the people you work with, which is
Well, yeah,
nice.
and
But
you're up over in what, near Michigan?
yeah,
Yep, and I'm all the way over in Reno, so
yeah,
it is
that
definitely
makes
good
it.
in that aspect.
Yeah, it make that is probably my favorite thing about the show, to be honest. Which people outside of the company probably don't care about, but inside the company, I enjoy, you know, getting to know everyone a little bit better and talking to everyone a little bit more about sports than we otherwise would be, which I think is probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, and that's what I think was kind of playing on to what I said about, what I initially thought the Daily Show was kind of supposed to represent, which was just kind of getting people's voices heard and getting them out there. Which is why, I don't think it should, be completely just getting rid of. Like I think, it's something that is worth at least, trying to tweak and fix before just, completely giving up on it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, and that will probably come in time as well as we round out people pitch ideas. So I imagine for people that do enjoy listening to the Daily Show, there probably will be some tweaks in the future. And then as for the Google form as well, did you fill out the Google form? Obviously, it's anonymous, so if you want to
I
pass
did.
on this, feel free. But did you fill out the Google form and do you think what's your opinion on that approach to kind of providing feedback to the company?
I did fill out the form. I think it was after like the second time he had sent it out or something. I just went through and quickly figured it out. But I mean, I think, forums like that, or just kind of the idea of getting feedback or, constructive criticism is good for pretty much anybody or anything or any business. I mean, there's really nobody or nothing that, can't be benefited by constructive criticism. I mean, obviously we're a younger, relatively smaller company, trying to grow. We're not going to be perfect. I mean, Trey recognizes that. Everybody working for Vendetta recognizes that. Nobody's perfect. Nobody working here is perfect and has never, done anything wrong or whatnot. So I think, the Google forms like that are a good idea. I like that they're anonymous too, so you can kind of feel a little bit more comfortable in speaking your mind and saying what you want to say without, having to worry about it coming back to you. So I enjoyed the forum. I, liked getting to kind of voice some of the things I, think could be improved upon or some of the things that I currently like.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's a good idea. And I'm sure it's something that pretty much all companies in some way do, or at
Yeah.
least ones that want to succeed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a pretty good teaser for the episode of that some cheese that Trey and I did. So once again, don't know when that will be out, but make sure everyone checks that out because there are some important company updates in there that people should know about. So watching that episode will be beneficial to everybody, especially at the company, and it provides some good entertainment outside of the company. But like you said, it's a good way to anonymously speak your mind, and that leads to some good responses in the Google form that me and Trey discussed. Yeah, it's a good way to get feedback, but also ended up being a pretty good episode of the Daily Show. So make sure people check that out as
So,
well.
who'd you put for your least favorite writer?
Ooh, do you want to put that out there? I'll say
You
it.
don't have to. We don't have to put anyone on blast.
I'll
I
say I'll say it because I said it in the episode of That's Some Cheese, so I will say it here, as well. But I said DePena, and not because now I'm on 2 podcasts talking about DePena, so but I like DePena a lot. I do wanna stress that. I like DePena, um, but the reason I put DePena is because I feel like he has some untapped potential. And I'd like to see him do a little bit more at the company, and I think he can do really good work at Vendetta. So that's why I
Yeah, he's
said,
done some good work with like on the YouTube and videos before, so he definitely
mhm,
can. And that's kind of sort of this like a similar direction I went. First, I obviously I didn't want to like take the cheap route and pick like an intern or someone who had been fired for being bad. I assumed it was you had to pick from a standing Vendetta member, and I'm trying to blank on exactly who I picked, but I think I just kind of picked some people that are in the MLB like chat and department, just because I felt like that was a department where kind of the same thing where we have the potential to do some damage and do some work, and it just seemed like a good amount of the guys in that department just kind of disappeared over the course of the MLB season. I was doing and am doing my best to get or was doing my best to keep MLB content going, but it just kind of seemed like some of those guys in those chats, and I think I didn't even like pick one specific. That was just kind of what my answer was just kind of that
mhm.
department as a whole,
Yeah, and
myself included.
that was one of the things that me and Trey talked about about how the MLB section needs to be better and can be better. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and I
and
definitely agree. It can be. I mean, we have some really good, talented writers in that department, and it just seemed like a lot of them, kind of disappeared over the course of the season. Like I was doing like the draft profiles for all the incoming prospects, and it was just like nobody even like reached out to like do anybody, and it was just like they were just free posts. They were just free
mhm,
posts that were taking me like 15-20 minutes. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think that the MLB team as a whole is capable of doing a lot more damage.
yep, and that was one of the things I talked about too. Like we had good content coming out, and I talked about your scouting profiles because like MLB draft content is very sparse.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what Trey was saying. That's why I wanted to do it.
yeah, there just simply isn't a ton of it, and it seems like that's an area where we could, where we could do some damage. And outside of you and Trey on the draft profiles, you guys were the only ones who did them, and the MLB production is just not incredibly high in terms of post
Yeah, I
output.
mean, I try and
So,
go through there and pick up as many posts as I can, but I also try. I just kind of focus, like on the main three: baseball, basketball, football. So I'm just kind of usually trying to go through all those three and not focus too much on one. But
mhm. Yeah, that's one of the hard things is like for you especially, it's like you split up. I don't want to like you split up across the different sports. Like I get the benefit of most of my articles right now are UFC related, so it
yeah,
makes it
but even
easier to
you, like, you'll do NFL
yeah,
stuff when it's
like
backed up.
yeah, I'll chip in other spots, but it's like
Yeah,
I can really hone into the UFC, and it makes it easier to improve the one section when you're able to put 90% of your effort towards the UFC stuff. Like I still do other stuff as well, but It's like,
Yeah, and
and I
I've
can
tried
put all my
focusing
effort.
more on the MLB just because I've noticed that it seems like a lot of the other people besides Trey in that department just kind of disappeared. So I like tried focusing a little bit more on the MLB department. But yeah,
Hmm.
I just kind of think that department as a whole, we have the potential to, do a lot more. There's a lot of really good writers in that, thread that I
Yep.
just, kind of haven't seen a whole lot from them over the course of the MLB season.
Hmm. The talent is there, that's for sure. It's like the talent we have, the people. We have quite a few MLB writers. It's not like we have two and
Yeah,
they're not showing up. We
no,
have
we
quite a
got
few
more
MLB
than
writers and
enough.
quite a few good ones. So yeah.
I think it's enough airing of dirty laundry.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyone who's real intrigued in this, make sure to go check out the That's Some Cheese episodes because me and Trey did that for probably about an hour and a half. Maybe it gets cut down to an hour 15, however the editor approaches that. But yeah, we talked about that quite at length with several different sections. So if anyone is interested in that, there is quite a bit more conversation to follow that. So um,
I wonder if
as
anyone
far
put Trey as their least favorite writer as a joke.
I thought about that afterwards. If I would have known beforehand that I was doing that some cheese with him, I would. I think I would have done it. I would have said he was my least favorite as a joke, and then we could have got his reaction on the show, and then I could have been like, "Oh, that was me. I was just
Yeah,
messing
he'd have
with you."
seen his name once, and oh my god, he'd have found
That
a way to make it non-anonymous anymore.
that would have been a funny prank to pull on that on his podcast. It would have been funny to pull that off, but I submitted my form before I went on, so that would have been a nice little opportunity there. But um, yeah, as far as like we kind of diverted from the Jonathan Taylor a little bit, but I think that's more than okay because as far as company updates go, I think we just did more company updates in one Daily Show than anyone else has the whole time, which probably a problem with the Daily Show and its structure as we've talked about. But um, we hit quite a few of we
We're
hit quite a
acknowledging
bit,
it.
yeah, quite a bit of company news here today. Now, as far as Jonathan Taylor goes, we were talking about whether we were surprised as to if Jonathan Taylor didn't get traded. Personally, I'm with you. It's like they came out publicly and said first round pick or close to that. So, was anyone going to trade a first round pick and then pay him big money? I don't think teams want to trade first round picks for running backs or pay running backs big money. So I think we were in a pretty clear position where we were going to walk away from this with no trade. And I am kind of glad that they made this announcement and we don't really have to kind of debate or figure out where he's going to go. Rather, we now know he's going to stay. Now, the question is, does he play in 2023 or does he sit out?
Yeah, that's the more difficult question. Honestly, I feel like I can't really give an answer, a yes or no, either way. Like I said, I'm 21-year-old over here in Reno. Honestly have no clue what's going on in the mind of Jonathan Taylor right now. If you put a gun to my head right now, I'd probably lean towards him not playing just based on what he said in the past and kind of how he feels about the situation. The only issue is we've seen running back holdouts in the past, and I don't think there's ever been a single running back holdout that's really ever worked out. I mean, I guess Zeke, I guess technically it worked out for him. He got his big contract, but like Melvin Gordon held out, lost a bunch of money. Le'Veon Bell held out, lost even more money. So I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he knows the history of running backs holding out.
Hmm.
But it just seems like kind of given what his attitude's been, given this whole thing, and how much he seemingly hates Jim Irsay, it seems like he won't be playing for at least the start of the season. How long that goes on for, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think the running back holdout's not working out as interesting to me because you'd think teams, I don't know if Jonathan Taylor will get paid, especially after not being injured or after being injured last season, but it's like, to me, Jonathan Taylor sits out a year, you think that would help him in the long term, because he has less carries on his body now. It's like we know NFL running backs get these carries and break down. So it's like in theory, you would think less carries would help him in the long term, but that's not typically how it goes. Kind of is the opposite of that. And I don't necessarily think the Colts are going to be a good team. Like, if he doesn't play, let's say hypothetically he sits out the first 4 weeks. It's like they very well could go 0-4 over the first 4 games. And then why does he come back? Like, if he sits out however many games and the team stinks, he's going to be like, well, what's the
No
point
point in
now?
playing now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, to me, I would not be surprised if we get 0 games out of Jonathan Taylor in 2023, which is a shame for people who already drafted him in fantasy. I imagine there's
Why
some
you
gonna
don't
be
draft this early? You gotta wait
yeah,
as long as you possibly can.
yep. I hate early drafts. Um, doesn't make any sense, especially preseason injuries. I remember people were drafted and then Andrew Luck retired. It's like, why was you drafted early? It's like, so yeah, that is actually, I think he retired in the preseason, so that might be an exaggeration, but still, don't draft early and don't draft Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then kind of what you were
or
talking.
they could just read the cheese list and not draft them, which is also very effective.
Just listen to Trey.
It usually works out pretty good when it comes to fantasy football.
But yeah, and then like you were talking about with Jonathan Taylor, where like if the Colts come out and they start off 0-4, and then he's like, oh well, there's no point in even playing. On the flip end, by some miracle, the Colts start the season and they're like 3-1 or 4-1.
That's
Well, then
halfway
it's
to winning the division.
well
That's
then
halfway to
exactly.
winning
Not only that, but then
in
it's
the
all
AFC
like
South.
all of a sudden Jim Irsay and the Colts are like, oh okay, well we don't need you.
Yeah.
Like we don't need you. And then now, not only does that just hurt his pride, but that certainly will hurt, how much he's worth if, he leaves or is not playing for the Colts and they all of a sudden go out there and are like even better or just as good as if he is out there. And I think that's usually what happens in these holdout situations is these star running backs hold out and then a lot of times teams, keep running their offense and they realize that it may be nice to have an elite running back or a really, really good running back, but most of them realize that at the end of the day, it's not gonna, you know, super, super drastically change your offense unless you're like the Titans and only run the ball. But for most teams, it's like, I mean, it's why they say it's such a replaceable position because usually,
Mhm.
like a team like the Eagles who were in the Super Bowl were running back by committee for the most part.
Yep. And they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, who were starting 7th round rookie Isaiah Pacheco.
And Jared
So
McKinnon.
yeah, and Jared McKinnon, who they picked up for pennies. So yeah, I 100% agree with that point where the Taylor value is probably not in a great spot. And then we did not talk about this beforehand, but while we were talking, there was some breaking news that came out of the Patriots side of things. They cut both backup quarterbacks. They cut Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham, and they right now only have Mac Jones on the roster. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I saw that notification on my phone as we were sitting here talking, and I was very, very surprised. So I really don't see I'm kind of flabbergasted here because you now have one quarterback on the roster, so that means you're probably going to sign somebody. Who are you signing that's better than Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham? And Cunningham had a good preseason, and
Yeah,
Zappi played good in spots in the regular season
yeah,
last year
Zappy's shown that he
as a
can
backup.
play good
So
as a spot guy.
yeah, when it comes to a backup quarterback, Bailey Zappi is probably an above average backup,
Yeah,
I'd say.
seems to be pretty much as good as it gets for backups or close to it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind
So
of the same way. It's just like I don't even really know what to say about it. It's just like really surprising. I mean, I know it's Bill Belichick. He's always usually cooking something up, but it's like right now I'm just kind of like, seems like you're missing some ingredients. It's like to not even like I could if you want to cut like one of them, I guess I would get it. You cut one, and maybe you want to bring in a different backup, or one of them wants too much money or something. I don't know, but to just completely cut both and put yourself in a spot where you could only have one quarterback, like I don't know. And then yeah, like you said, I mean, what backup out there are they going to find that's significantly better than either Cunningham or Zappy?
Hmm.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea. I don't even really have that much to say. I just wanted to bring it up because I was surprised to see it. So I wanted to at least acknowledge I'd like you said, it doesn't really make much sense. Seems like he's cooking without a few ingredients. Maybe in an hour we see what direction they go, and maybe it makes a little bit more sense. But I think this is a testament to the Bill Belichick roster construction being a little bit flawed as of late. I think Belichick can still coach, but the roster construction is looking a little bit iffy here over the last couple of years. And I think this is a good example of we're going to cut both our backup quarterbacks on cut day. Both have reasons to make an NFL roster as well. It's not like we're cutting guys that you
Yeah,
watch and go, they suck. It's like both these guys have reasons to keep them around.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, yeah, like Bailey Zappi was a pretty known name by NFL fans because I mean he did, have spot starts last year and was relatively good for a backup. So
Hmm.
yeah, just definite confusion on my end.
Yeah. And let's roll this over to the last NFL topic that is really sticking out in my mind here. The Cardinals are not going to name a day one. They're not going to name a starter. Head coach Gannon said because it is a competitive advantage to not name a starter. Um, do you think this makes any sense for the Cardinals, especially because they are picking between Joshua Dobbs and forgive me because I am slipping my mind on the other.
Is
Oh, Clayton Tune.
Is Jeff Driscoll in there as well?
Oh, he might be. We're pulling up the depth chart.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull
Um,
that up right now. I think
yeah.
Driscoll's also included in there.
Joshua Dobbs, Clayton Tune, David Blau, and Kyler Murray. David Blau is gonna probably get cut. He is not very good.
Yeah,
I've seen
Joshua
too many
Dobbs.
games of him in a Lions uniform to say anything positive about David Blau. But Joshua Dobbs and Clayton Tune. Uh, what's your opinion on this strategy of not naming a quarterback? And kind of off the back of our last thing, Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham. Like Cardinals should make some phone calls because
Yeah,
Zappi would be the best
yeah. I mean,
quarterback
you
out
just said it
in that room.
yourself. I mean, like, because I was gonna say, in terms of just not being able to know who you want your starting quarterback to be between Joshua Dobbs and Clayton Tune, like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If you're like, well, man, I don't know who to start between one of these two guys. It's like I don't think either one of them is necessarily like significantly better than the other one. But I also think it's a bit weird to just come out and outright say, well, we're not going to name a starting quarterback at all until as late as we can. Because I think that also kind of plays into the confidence of the quarterback, too. It's like, even if the quarterback knows that they're, a backup playing because Kyler Murray's injured, it's like you kind of still want that vote of confidence from your coach and from the team that you're the starter, week one, everyone's riding with you, riding behind you, and you're leading this, you're leading the team. I
Mhm.
think right now it's just kind of probably creating a little bit of confusion within the locker room and amongst the quarterbacks themselves of kind of like, who's going to be the leader of this team? Who needs to be the guy to step up and kind of take control of the team? And by not naming a quarterback like at all or who your starter is going to be, I think you're just kind of postponing that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't even think about the player personnel aspect or player relationship or confidence aspect of things. I looked at it more of like Clayton Tune, Joshua Dobbs. What advantage are you getting from starting either of these guys?
Yeah, exactly. Just
Like it's like,
pick one out of a hat.
yeah, I don't think any NFL team is gonna be like utterly shocked to, try and defend Joshua
And be
Dobbs.
like,
And
oh no, they went with Dobbs over Tune. We gotta restructure our entire defensive game plan.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah,
And
like you said, the Cardinals should be busy on the phone right now. I mean, Bailey Zappi would be an upgrade over both of them. But of course, I'm pretty sure the Cardinals want to be losing. So
yes. Yeah, the Cardinals are, and they have the Texans pick as well. They're going to do their best to lock up Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. They want pick 1 and 2, and they're gonna build the offense for the future. And honestly, I can't bash them for it. Like, if I were a GM sitting with the Cardinals and Texans pick, I wouldn't necessarily be running to the window to win football games. I'd much
yeah,
rather try and sit there and secure myself the
with
number
Kyler
one pick.
Murray as your quarterback.
Yeah, and who knows what they can trade Kyler for? I don't even know what his trade value would be, but hypothetically, say you squeeze a couple draft picks out of him, all of a sudden the future looks pretty bright. So I can't even slam them. It's just funny that they're wording it as a competitive advantage to not know who the quarterback is. Now, you wrote a post earlier today about Red Sox prospect. Once again, excuse me on the name here. Also, cannot pronounce it. Sendene or Rafea
Yeah,
got the call.
it's a tongue twister.
It is. He got the call to the big leagues, and he was playing PS4 when he got the call. Missed the call, or maybe it was PS5. Excuse
PS5.
me,
Get it right.
PS5. Yeah, my bad, my bad. I'm still sitting on the PS4, so that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. He was playing PS5. He's a big leaguer. He's got a PS5. But explain this post here and explain what happened when he got the call.
I mean, really, it's just kind of just a funny little story. It's something that's not necessarily like, oh wait, Trey's explaining how to say his name.
Ooh,
Oh,
I like this.
it's Raphael, except add an A to the end. Rafaela.
Ooh, I like that. I think
Okay.
that's the first Rafaela I've heard. I
That
like
is
that.
well. It's interesting because I was looking at videos of his swing and his stance looked pretty similar to Rafael Devers, funnily enough. But
So
people were saying that this kid reminded them of Mookie Betts, but all I could see when I was looking at his swing was that it looked like Devers, was that his stance looked like Devers. But yeah, back to the story. It's not something that's necessarily like super surprising or has never happened before, but he obviously got the call sometime yesterday that he was getting promoted to the show, and um, he seemingly missed the call, but missed a couple of the calls because he was too busy playing PS5, playing PlayStation, and just completely missed the calls. Didn't even realize they went through. And yeah, it was just kind of a funny story. I believe Gabrielle Starr, a writer for or a Boston reporter, was the first one to kind of reveal it. And it was supposed to just kind of be mostly a funny little story, but of course, with social media, people start finding any reason to
yeah,
hate, bring stuff up, and are saying that, oh my God, why is he playing video games? He's supposed to be an MLB player, blah, blah, blah. And then I mentioned it in the article, but there's countless different stories across all sports of guys missing draft day calls or promotion calls. I talked about Colton Cowser for the Orioles prospect. He missed his call on draft day because he didn't recognize the number. Nikola Jokic, two straight MVP winner, slept through his draft pick and phone call. And another prospect for the Giants was watching the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and like that was kind of the point. Another one of the points I was making was it was just like so often with these kind of athletes, we just view them in such crazy lights and view them as almost like these gods that just do such crazy things, and we just kind of sometimes forget that they are legit just people like you and me
mhm,
and do normal things.
yeah. And I will say credit to Rafaela, because like of all the calls to miss, it's like usually when people are playing video games and they miss a call, it's their girlfriend, and then the girlfriend gets upset. He was getting a call to the bigs. Like, I mean, usually turns out a lot worse for these guys that are missing calls while they're playing PlayStation. Also, he got to get back on the mic after he took the call and tell all his boys that he
Yep.
was a big leaguer. So it's
I'm
like
packing my bags.
he was like, "This is probably." It probably turned out to be quite a time for him getting on the mic, being like, "Guys, I got to get off. I got to pack my bags. I'm going to the show." He got to tell his boys before his parents. That's how. That's how this turned out. So it probably ended up being quite a funny time for him. And in the scheme of missing calls while playing PlayStation, that's obviously you're missing out on good news. So it's not not a terrible thing for
Yeah, no, I mean it's not like he misses the call and it's like, oh well, we're never making it to the MLB now.
him.
GG.
Yeah. Um, and the last topic that we've got prepped up for today, uh, Ronald Acuna got tackled during a Braves game. Um, I believe it was in Colorado.
Yep.
He's got two fans rushing out to the field. Security absolutely nowhere to be found, and he gets tackled by some fans. One fan, I don't really know what he was trying to do, whether it was supposed to be a hug or a tackle, because it was a pretty tight hug. But he wasn't really making an attempt to get him to the ground. The UFC fan in me knew, hey, we got a nice little trip there. If he wanted him on the ground, he could have got there if he knew what he was doing. Another fan comes in. We get a nice little tabletop here. Nice little push. One of the security guards was on the ground. To me, this was a kind of a surprise to see with how bad the security was, and I can't believe they actually went for a player. I don't know how malicious they were actually being, but it was a very very strange situation there last night with Acuna.
Yeah, definitely was a weird situation. I kind of had the same takeaway of just like, well, what the hell is Colorado security doing? Like the first guy gets there and is hugging him, and you're waiting for security to show up, and then they finally do, and then they're like struggling to get this one guy off of him, and then the second guy comes in out of nowhere, and the security just like they just look like overwhelmed trying to get these guys off him. Like there was the one guy who's doing like the like oh, I'm drawing a blank on the animal that does it, but like doing the thing where you grab on the like the bottom of their leg. Like one of the security guards is doing that, like a little brother trying to attack their older brother. And yeah, I mean that was just kind of my biggest takeaway is like what the hell was security doing? But also I was wondering where his teammates were. Like if there's fans jumping onto the field, seemingly attacking one of your players, at that point it's on. If I'm in right or left field, I'm running over there and I'm assaulting fans because I mean once you run onto the field and start legit like assaulting players, pretty much it's like you've pretty much reserved your right to not get your ass kicked at that point. So that was my other thing, and apparently I heard something that Sean Murphy was like all the way from behind the plate was like getting up and starting to run out there before his teammates stopped him. But that was my other takeaway is like why none of his teammates in the outfield ran over to like help because clearly the security was struggling.
Yeah. Credit to Sean Murphy though for being the teammate ready to scrap, and I'm surprised Acuna didn't start pushing back a little. I mean, there's other players that would have you wouldn't want to do that to. Acuna seems like a pretty nice dude. Didn't really fight back. Other players probably wouldn't have taken that so nicely. We could have had another Jose Ramirez situation where someone ends up out cold, but
Or at least in that
Ronald,
case, it was another MLB player.
yeah, it's a little different.
Could have had a Malice at the Palace, but for baseball.
That would have been something. But yeah, like Acuna could have probably easily shucked that dude off him or, you know, thrown some punches before he got to
Yeah,
him,
I
but
think
he
he was
didn't do
more
that. So
surprised and
yeah.
confused, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. So credit to him for that as well. And thankfully he didn't get busted up or anything because he is in the ended up being a pretty tight MVP race between him and Mookie down the stretch here. So
Freddie Freeman all of a sudden is going to throw his name in there too.
yeah. That and Acuna had it on lock for a minute, so he needs to stay healthy so he can win that. So it all worked out in the end, but pretty interesting situation there. And like we said, we are going to cut it a little bit early today. I ended up going a little bit longer than planned, but that's all right.
We can talk
And
about the future of the Daily Show.
we did. We did. That's what I was gonna say. We touched a lot of bases today. Future of the Daily Show, some company forums, some NFL news, and some kind of surprising news, some unsurprising news, and then a couple of funny stories in the MLB that you don't see every day. And make sure you tune in tomorrow for the Daily Show because it is a daily show and it will be back. Make sure that you tune in to the episode of That's Some Cheese that Trey and I did if you're interested in hearing more about that Google form and some of the responses that we got and some other important company updates. So, but most importantly, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Daily Show. We appreciate everyone who watches. Thank you.